I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll begin with reading the usual boilerplate that we've been provided with. In accordance with Governor Baker's executive order permitting virtual meetings during the COVID pandemic, the Cemetery Committee is conducting this public meeting today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1, 2020 and amended May 7th. Today is June 2nd, 2021. This meeting's been properly noticed with the town clerk. I ask that all cemetery members, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their mics unless they have something to say or are participating in community dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, please unmute yourself or raise your hand by hitting *9 on your phone, or select raise your hand option by your name in the list of participants. If you're recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I hereby call this meeting to order. All committee votes will be taken via roll call. We'll start with an attendance roll call of committee members. When I announce your name, please reply. Paul Cook, here. Andrea Solomon.
Here.
Jerry Susi.
Here.
Leo Carroll.
Here.
And Brian Davidson.
Here.
Good to see everyone. Also good to see Jeremy and Rebecca with us. All right. I've been notified, Jeremy and Rod and Rebecca. Yeah. I've been notified by Jeremy Ramasol and through him by Stephen Crane, the town manager, that you have been appointed and approved for membership on the committee, and that Jeremy will be getting in touch with you to finish the last steps to get you guys fully enrolled. So welcome to the committee. It's great to having you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Deed signing again, Andrea. Thank you for faithfully doing this this past 14 months, and maybe one more time this month.
One more time, yeah.
and the next proposed cemetery committee meeting. I think that our hardworking cemetery superintendent is going to have some time off in July. And so it looks like the next committee proposed date would be the first Wednesday in August. That's August the 4th. Would that work for, is there anybody here for whom that will not work? Great. Okay, so then it's decided the next committee meeting will be on August the 4th. And at that meeting, the gathered members of the committee will elect a new chair and vice chair. Now, the next thing, order of business, is the approval of the minutes from May. Has everyone had a chance to read those minutes? I want to thank Justine for doing the labor of putting it together. It's, you know, it takes a lot of time. You have to re-listen to the recording and all this sort of stuff. So thank you for doing that, Justine. Oh, you have something, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Yes, minor, Rod won't think this, but a minor detail. His last name is misspelled.
Ah,
in the additional residence on the front page, you know, where they show everybody. His name is R-I-E-D-E-L.
Okay, Justine. Thank you for noticing that, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. It happens so frequently. It happens so frequently, I screen it out. So
I figured.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. I'm glad we got that. That's important. All right. So the minutes. Any other issues on the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve them? I move to approve the minutes. Paul Cook. Okay.
I'll second that, Paul.
Okay. Brian Davidson seconds it. All in favor. Let's have a roll call. Andrea?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Leo Carroll?
Aye.
Paul Cook, aye. And Brian says aye as well. All right, so the minutes are approved unanimously. Now we move on to chair comments. All right. Since this is the last time I'm going to be on the chair of the committee, I have some things to say, but I was thinking I would wait till the end, but I think I might as well do it now. First of all, excuse me, my wife should get that done. I want to say that it's just really been great to be on the committee all this time and to do what we've been doing for Andrea and I started about the same time, about 7 years ago. And we've seen a lot of things happen, and it's been a privilege and an honor to be part of it. And I've particularly enjoyed working with Andrea over all this time. I also have enjoyed working with our veterans now. You're all veterans, Jerry and Brian and Leo. My neighbor Leo, whose father once had the job that I guess that Tish has now. He was in charge of the whole cemetery. So it's great having Leo with us. And each of you, and I think that we have a collection of talent here that is really wonderful. We've been able to get a lot done. And I want to welcome Rod and Rebecca to the group. I'm sure that as a team, you'll be able to get a lot done. So I just want to say that how much I've appreciated that. And also, again, to tell Susan that it's been great having her with us each month. I want to also say that it's been really appreciated working with Aaron, who for a while I considered him the new superintendent because we started with another fellow, but he's been around so long I can hardly call him the new superintendent any longer. It's been what, over 3 years? 2 years. It seems longer than that. But anyway, Aaron has been now broken in quite well, and he's a scarred veteran of all this. And of course, it's been a great pleasure working with Tish, who is very self-effacing, but if anybody contributes to the beautification of the cemetery and it's working well, it's her. And not only does she do it now, but she's been doing it for, I think, 4 decades. Is that right, Tish? Almost 4.
Almost 4.
Almost,
Close to, yeah.
Close
Close
enough.
enough. Whatever.
So it's been a real privilege to work with her. I just take lots of walks in the cemetery with my little dog. We were always running into Tish. She was, no matter rain or snow or no matter hot, she was always there working and hard and making things happen. Even as she made happen last week over Memorial Day with all those flags that were placed around the cemetery. She oversaw that, as she does every year. So many other things that she does. So it's just been great working with a public servant like Tish. So today, I think this is my last meeting. I was thinking, what is it that that I might say after 6.5 years as chair that I've learned that I might pass on to you as the main lesson that I learned in this job? It's not only a job, but in this position. And this is what I think I've come up with. There's a tendency to just react to the latest concerns. Sometimes they're little, sometimes they're big. We have all kinds of things that are brought up that Tish brings them to us or Aaron brings them to us. And we do deal with those. And there's also the things that are just done that the operations people, that Aaron and Tish handle. They don't need us for that. In fact, our main job in that respect is just to say to them, how can we help you? How can we make your job better? But being on the cemetery committee is more than just supporting Aaron and Tish in what they're doing, or responding to the smallest issues or some of the medium-sized issues that come our way. But there's something more important. And so this is what I think that is. In my view, it's that you can have a vision for something about the cemetery, a vision for caring for these historic grounds in this very historic old American town. It's the first town above tidewater in New England, English settlement. And it's been here a long time, and the cemetery is a very important part of that history. And so caring for it requires a certain amount. It's not simply responding to the latest problem or supporting those who work so hard to make it function well, but having a vision for its protection and its future. And so I think that's the main lesson I've learned, that you need to have a kind of a vision. And if there's any place where that vision is embodied, it's in the master plan. The master plan is a written document, but it actually embodies what the future of the cemetery is about. And I just want to encourage the members of the committee to use it. It was revitalized by a subcommittee in which Andrea was a part a few years ago. And it contains so many valuable things, but it needs to be attended to, updated, and so on. We'll look at it a little bit later in our meeting. But I think this means you have to push against a natural tendency to just respond to the latest problems and look beyond that for bigger, more long-term issues. One example I'll give is the mausoleum. When I came on board, somebody came and wanted to buy a mausoleum and was willing to spend an enormous amount of money for it. We didn't have anything in place to deal with that. So we couldn't sell him the plot. We wanted to have it down there where the Pope tomb is. So we began working on making it possible to sell mausoleums. And we ran into various kinds of obstacles. Somebody on the select board said, there'll be resistance because it's elitist. It's going to cost a lot of money and only the richest people can afford it. And there were other people who said something similar. We had a public meeting and the public attended, and there was no problem, no concern about that at all. So, and then there were other people who there was just a tendency, not on the committee, but just a tendency in certain places to just not want to rock the boat. We had to push and push. In fact, at one place, after a year of trying to surmount various obstacles, I realized that there was resistance coming from a certain area. And I said, look, I'm going to go to the town manager or the Concord Journal, and we're going to make it public. And you know what? Before I knew it, there was no more obstacle. And next thing you know, time passed, and we did have the public meeting. We pushed forward, and now here it is, 5 or 6 years afterwards, we've got 5 mausoleum plots that are available for purchase. If just one of them gets sold, it would bring in enough income to do all kinds of renovations and preservation work in the cemetery. So, but in order to do that, you had to persevere patiently and persistently. The same thing happened with the restoration of the Melvin Memorial. That had to go on for years, many, many years before it was finally brought to fruition. The redoing the roads in the cemetery is another issue. If you have, but what I'm trying to say is that if you agree as a group, and if the leadership is particularly of the committee is on board with it, you have to be willing to push to make things happen. That's what vision is. Otherwise, you just are responding to things as they come along and you won't get as much done. If you want to accomplish something, you have to have a goal. You may not reach it, but if you don't have a goal, for sure you're not going to reach it. So I think that's pretty much the thing. If you have a vision for something and the committee agrees, you have a lot of power and authority to go ahead despite resistance. Just look at the cemetery charge. You're authorized, that's your constitution, to push for something if you really believe it needs to be done. So to cut this short, the biggest lesson I've learned is that you don't have to simply be a reactive chair or a reactive committee. You can have a vision and then thoughtfully, respectfully, but persistently pursue it. And now I'd like to share 7 points that I found useful. Maybe the next chair will find them useful too. The first is the agenda. These are the things that the superintendent or the supervisor, in this case Aaron and Tish, bring up and which need to be attended to. And there'll be something like that every month. But it's up to the chair and the committee to add things to the agenda. That's where, in some sense, you can weigh in as a group and affect the course of what the cemetery does. The second thing is the charge. The charge is your constitution. It's the town's commission to you as a committee. So I would encourage you to review it once a year. It tells you what you can and should be doing and what you don't have the authority to do. The third thing is that it really is a good thing if every member can be involved. There's so many different talents that you don't even know about until you give people a chance to show them. And I think it's more fun, it gets more done too, if everybody on the committee gets involved. The fourth thing is to use the master plan and update it annually. The fifth thing, I think, and I found this very useful, and I have to thank Aaron for making it possible, is to meet with the superintendent a day or two, or even a few hours before each month's meeting, just to go over the agenda and talk about things and to make sure you've got good communications. I spent a few minutes with Aaron just this morning, and Tish joined us too, just talking about stuff. And I recommend that as a good practice. The fifth thing that I would recommend is to appreciate Tish, because she has her eyes open, her ears to the ground. She knows what's going on. And if you want to know more about what's going on, talk to her.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I would recommend is annually, at least annually, take a tour of the cemetery on foot together. We've done that quite a bit. You can also use a van, right? You can also commission the cemetery. The cemetery has use of a Department of Public Works van. You can commission that. I think that Aaron can make that happen, and you can take a look around, have a look at the place. All right, so that's my that's all I have to say for my chair comments. And now I'd like to give it over to Aaron for his staff report. Aaron, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Aaron Klosko, Highway and Ground Superintendent. For the month of May, we had 3 full burials and 5 cremations that took place in the cemetery. 10 single grave lots and 2 cremation lots were sold. We also held a flag installation ceremony, which Paul had mentioned previously during his chair report. A few weeks back, the members of the Maynard Clinton Elks Lodge and Tish organized this ceremony where I'd say over 50 people showed up, distributed over, was 1,600 flags or so, and on a Saturday morning, and walked throughout Sleepy Hollow and installed those on all of the graves of the veterans that are buried at Sleepy Hollow. So very nice attended event, and big thanks to Tish and the Maynard Elks for organizing and completing that event. So that's been going on for a number of years, and nice to continue that again this year. So I don't know, Tish, do you have any updates on any other maintenance items or you'd like to discuss?
No, just a successful Memorial Day. No complaints. So all good. A little rainy, but good.
And that's all I really have to update.
Aaron, tell us about the maintenance issue to do with the Melvin Memorial, what you found there, what's going on there.
Yeah, so we reached out to Daedalus. We did receive a proposal from them for $3,000 to do a cleaning of that. We reached back up to them. We needed a few more details on that proposal before we can award it, but we plan on awarding it to them and getting that scheduled for the summer.
Great.
I would also note that the Highway and Grounds Division also plans to install the loam and seed in a couple areas that we had referenced in a previous meeting this month. They got a little delayed, but that will be still planned to be completed.
Great.
Middle of the summer.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Aaron or Tish? All right. Let's go on to D3. Oversized flat marker request the Chiha family.
So what's allowed is a 2-foot by 1-foot flat marker. They're requesting that they be allowed to do a stone that's 6 inches wider than the allowed 24 inches. So 30 inches wide by 1 foot from, let's say, top to bottom, but it would still be set flush with the ground.
Any questions for Tish about this?
May I ask a question, Paul?
Please, Ron.
So Tish, this is Rod Riddell asking, and these are similar questions to what I had when the stone, which was oversized stone, was approved by the committee several meetings ago. Is there a history here of frequently having people who have purchased lots in the burial plots in the cemetery requesting stones or markers that are outside of the specifications? Does this come up frequently or routinely for the committee to review?
Not that frequent. This is kind of a weird case. So this is a case where a family has an upright headstone already that's 30 inches wide, well within the restrictions for what we allow for an upright headstone. Another member of the family died that they had not anticipated was going to be interred here. They thought they were going to be interred in California, but as it turns out, they're going to go here. So the family is changing the upright headstone so that they can incorporate the aunt and uncle's last name as well. So they're having the headstone that exists on the lot removed. They're having a new stone placed there. But the artwork that's on this stone is something that their mother drew, and they'd like to retain it. So they're actually asking the monument company to remove the upright headstone and to cut it, make that upright headstone into a flat marker and place it in the ground. If they were to cut it down to the 24-inch size that we do allow, it would actually probably cut off a portion of the artwork that's on the stone. So this is a very odd request, actually. This has never happened in the entire time I've worked here. They're just trying to keep that artwork on the lot because their mother drew it. And the 30-inch width has the 3 pieces of artwork spaced perfectly because that's how it was designed. So if they were to cut it down, it would change that.
And the placement of the marker would be well within the boundaries of the plot. So there's no worries about, encroaching on other people's plots.
No, well within.
Okay. So just one reaction, this seems fundamentally different from the case that you presented a few meetings ago where the stone cutter had come and was presenting, that large upright stone that was larger than the cemetery normally allows. And at the time I was wondering why a professional stone cutter had not consulted with the cemetery's criteria, or if they had, why they even presented such a stone to the family, knowing that it already, exceeded the limits. So in this case, it doesn't sound like any of those issues would arise. This is really a sort of an unexpected event, and people are trying to maintain and honor a memory. Okay, yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Rod, that was very helpful that you brought that up. Tish, thank you. I think we do get requests often for, that's why they end up on our plate, is if they are in violation of the specs, then Tish says, well, you can take it to the committee if you want. And so things do wash up on our beach, so to speak. And I think it depends really on the circumstances, whether we say sympathetically, let's give them a break, or whether we say, no, we're going to stick to the rules on this one. But it's part of the work, if somebody has to make these decisions, and in this case, it's us. Any other questions for Tish on the matter?
Yeah, this is Leo. I have a question. Tish, why are the dimensions the way they are? Is it so that you can get equipment between the lots, or some mechanical reason for having them that size?
The width of 24 inches was set when the graves were only 3 feet wide.
Yeah.
So it just allowed for some planting space.
Oh, okay.
Keeps it centered on the grave. It doesn't touch the borders of the lot. We don't want headstones touching each other. So you want to keep it within the grave space. The grave itself was 36 inches. Now they're a little wider, but.
Okay, thanks. I thought you were going to say my father came up with it.
Very well could have. Very well could have. I don't know. These were in place when I started here, so I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Tish? Do we have a motion to accept this, to approve this exception? Jerry, was that a question or a motion?
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request.
Okay, Jerry Susi moves to accept the request. Is there a second?
I'll second. Leo Carroll, second.
Leo Carroll seconds the motion. All right, so the motion is, do we accept this exception? And I say yes. Paul Cook votes aye. Andrea Solomon,
Yes.
Andrea votes aye. Jerry Susi,
Aye.
Brian Davidson,
Aye.
and of course, Leo.
Aye.
So it's unanimous. It's passed. D4, lot repurchases, 2 of them from the Asher family.
Robert and Joanna Asher purchased 3 separate 2-grave lots many, many, many years ago for their family's use. Since that time, everybody has moved away. So they just want to keep 2 graves for themselves. The kids don't want to be interred here. So they want to sell back 2 of the 2 graves, 2 of the 2 grave lots, J39 and J40, Chestnut Hollow. They want to sell back to the town for the original purchase price of 24, sorry. Actually for half of our current rate, sorry, half of our current rate. They bought them long enough ago that they were much cheaper back then in the old section. So they'd be selling them back for $2,200 each, so $4,400 total.
Okay. But Tish, a question. Just to review it for the benefit of the committee, you're going to have the burial spaces in the old part of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery are they're hotly desired. What will you do with these 2 new spaces?
I can sell them to people on our list.
So, and you've been keeping up that list?
Yep.
How many people are on that list?
65 or
What's that?
so, 65, around 65, 67, something like that, yeah.
Okay. Are people still putting their names on that list? Yeah, okay. All right, so do we have a motion to accept this repurchase?
I'll motion to accept.
Andrea Solomon moves to accept. Paul Cook seconds the motion. So Paul votes aye. Andrea votes aye, obviously. Jerry Susi,
Aye.
Brian Davidson,
Aye.
Leo Carroll.
Aye.
Motion is unanimously approved. I hear the birds in your backyard, Leo. It's great.
Uh-oh, should I turn this? Should I mute this?
Don't do that. Don't touch that dial. You're looking like Walt Whitman today, too.
I'm feeling like him.
All right, let's move on to D5, website review. And this we're counting on Justine and maybe Anna Trout. I don't know who's the person behind the scenes who's making this happen.
So that's just me for today. So,
Well, thank you very much.
so what are you looking for?
We want to start just with the Concord Cemetery homepage that people, if someone put on Google Concord, Massachusetts cemeteries, what would pop up?
Okay. Do you want me to Google it, or do you want me to just go to the cemetery committee page?
Whichever you prefer. I just want the committee, and including Ron and Rebecca, to get some sense of our public presence, our online presence. It's something that we began over the past few years. We began cultivating, and we want to keep doing so. And I just want everybody to have a chance to have a look at it today.
All right. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this is the cemetery committee. This is very nice, and we will get back to that. But I'm talking about the main page, not for the committee, but for the just the cemeteries in general. Yeah, in other words, click here to access cemetery webpage.
There we go.
There we go. That's right.
Okay.
Good. So you can see, everybody, that there's a place here for each of the sites. There's Sleepy Hollow, and then there's also the Old Hill and the South Burning Ground, and there's something for each of them there. Plus, there's Concord cemeteries in the news. Whenever we have something in the Concord Journal or in some other media outlet, we try to get it featured on our website. We have a few things there. And then there's cemetery operations. Let's click that just for a second so everybody can see what's at cemetery operations. So if you want to purchase a plot, there's a place where you can click that, and you can get find some information about how much the plots cost and how much it costs to have a burial in Concord. And this periodically we have to update this, but it's right there online. Let's go back, Justine, to all right, and then we can go back a little further. You can see down there, there's also the cemetery committee, which lists the latest agendas and minutes. We don't need to go there, it's just there. And then we actually link to the Friends site. We are unique in that the cemetery committee has a private outfit that is there to support what we do. Not too many town committees have such an ally. So we have a direct link to their site, and it's a really nice site. But you can also see here that the cemetery master plan is right here. You can go and see what the master plan is. We won't go there just now. And then there's the rules and regulations for the cemetery. And then there's, again, the fee schedule. But I think we could go just above at the headstone restoration report. If you would click that just for a second, Justine. This is the work that was finished last year, and a wonderful job that they did. And the contractor who did the work made a beautiful report, and the entire thing, including lots of photographs, are online. And of course, we have an ongoing project to continue doing these kinds of headstone restorations. And it's right there for the public to view. Thanks, Justine. That's just want to give everybody a taste. And you can go there and have a look around too. Now, let's go to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery itself. That's the first one. So there's a video here of the rededication service of 2019. And then there's also the Melvin Memorial. If you would click that just for a second, Justine.
Click the Melvin.
Oh, it doesn't click. Okay.
No.
Then let's go back. I think we have to go back to the main menu and find the Melvin.
Yeah.
Oh, here we are. You can click to the rededication ceremony, and you can also click to the documentary we saw last month using a drone, having in the project that Tish was involved with of bringing some earth from Concord down to Georgia in honor of one of the Melvin brothers. That's all there. That's all there. And then there's pictures of the renovations before. Here's a picture of before and after. And the entire hour-long rededication ceremony from 2019 is also available right here on the video is right here on the website. Right. You can click it and see the whole thing. Thank you, Justine. That's good. Let's go just for back to cemetery in the news. That's the one other thing we'll look at. So the latest issue was from February, where we finally accomplished the setting up the possibility to buy new mausoleums. That was an article appeared in the Concord Journal. And then before that, from last year, the Maynard Elks, on Memorial Day, it's a whole year ago. And so sometimes we may find a news story, but we have to remind our colleagues at for Justine or Anna Trout, or talk to Aaron McCloskey about getting the necessary link established between the news story and our website. In other words, all these things need to be, tended to so that they stay more or less up to date. Does anybody have any questions about the website? I just wanted to introduce you to it.
Who's the webmaster?
The person who works with the Public Works, who is a sort of, we're her in her portfolio, is Anna Trout.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions, if any?
If we have items to add, does that go through the committee, or should we just send that to?
Through the committee, definitely. Okay. And I think, for example, I noticed not too long ago that the master plan was not easily accessible through the website. So I talked to Aaron, and next thing I knew, it was there. So if you make it, Aaron or if you make Aaron aware of it and the committee members aware of it, we can get it up there. I think in some ways, I found that if you're just Googling, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get exactly where you want to be. I don't know exactly how to make it more user-friendly. Things could be done to do so. That will be up to someone to figure out. But at least the fundamentals are here. The basics are all here, and that's great. Any more questions or thoughts about the website? I think some of the things that are coming up, I know that some of the things that Tish is working on and Aaron to get all the cemetery records made digital. Or for example, the tree map, all the trees that are in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery have been mapped and described. And it would be great to find some way to link that mapping to the website so that you could visit there and use that material. That hasn't been done for various reasons, but it could be done. Okay, well, I guess that's all I wanted to do. Thank you very much, Justine. Let's go on to D6, update on committee's priority projects. Aaron, can't hear you. I think you're muted. Okay.
Sorry about that. So the record scanning project is still in process. Tish is kind of leading that effort right now, working with Boston Scanning, going through to make sure all the information that was transferred over digitally is correct. So literally, I've been going almost page by page and sheet by sheet on some of these maps. So it is very time intensive. Hopefully, that's done in the next month or so. So that is still ongoing. Want to make sure it's correct before we release it to the public. So once it is done, we will make sure that there are links to the cemetery page that was just shared with everybody. Headstone restoration, kind of no update from last time. We plan on still starting that after the fiscal year and do kind of the 2 years worth as the one project. So that's still the plan as of now. And that's right around the corner, which is nice. So by the next meeting, we should have some updates for the group on hopefully we have a contractor on board by then and have some work in progress.
Aaron, is the same contractor who did it last time aware that we're a new opportunities ahead?
We will be soliciting prices from multiple contractors like we did last time, and they will be one of them that's notified that, with this project going on at that point.
Yeah, she did such a fine job. It'd be great to
terrific
see it again. Yeah. Questions for Aaron?
I had a quick question about record scanning. When you have a new record, are we going to be able to scan that in? Like, will Tish scan that in from her office, or do you submit the information every so often to be scanned in? Or
We'll be able to do it ourselves.
oh, good. Okay, cool.
Other questions for Tish or for Aaron on these issues?
Yeah, this is Leo. I have a question. This will include all the maps of the cemetery?
Correct.
Okay, great. Because I'm still looking for places where we can plant those trees.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
good. There's room. There's room. All right, let's go on to D7. This is the master plan continued discussion, and we have 6 different items here. The first one is to do with the development of the northern section of the new area, and I'd like to turn it over to Andrea just to briefly discuss. And if the text actually, you may have the text that was suggested in your packet, but if you also have it, Justine, to put on the screen, that might be helpful if Andrea wants you to.
Yep, I can find it real quick.
Yeah, the text, so it's actually text that was suggested by Paul, but I thought it was great, so I didn't change
Well,
anything.
you had the freedom to doctor it all you wanted.
Well, it was very succinct, and I mean, it's really just, it is referring to those plans that we saw the last couple meetings that were created in the 80s, that were so lovely and did really reflect the feeling and I think original thought as to what Sleepy Hollow would be, and certainly it reflected the old plans. But you know, I know that these plans were largely scrapped, but it might be a nice thing to go back to and be inspired by when you're considering what to do in the new part from here on out, because you know, it had those sort of meandering paths and a lot more plantings.
Mhm.
And I know it was rather ambitious, but it's still something you can use for inspiration. So.
Yeah. And so, Andrea, if this the version you found was okay, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can vote to incorporate it in the master plan unless there are any further comments on it.
Sure. You know, and I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about this in one of the other points, but I just want to say a few things about the master plan and how to how to keep it going in the
Yes,
future.
for definitely the things that you suggested, the other points, they're in the packet, and
Okay.
we can take them one at a time or as a group as updates, and whatever else you want to say about it, I think it is a very important thing to do.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know if we have to go through it point by point, because maybe the committee could continue on with that at other meetings, but there are a couple different ways to handle the master plan. And again, that would be up to the future committee to decide how to do that. Because you can keep updating it and adding addendums, or you can kind of have new versions every couple of years. Like you could put addendums to the master plan to sort of update what we've accomplished and what needs to still be done. But you might want to put like the 2018 plan to rest and then start a new plan every 2 to 3 years, like the master plan 2021 or 2022, or so that you don't have a stack of addendums at the end that a new committee member would have to read through to get everything that if they want to jump in with what's relevant now, they can then read the current plan. And then for reference, go back and read some of those old plans, like whatever happened to this, or how did they accomplish this or that. It's just there's different ways to deal with a master plan, and that might be something that you want to consider making a decision about in the future.
Okay. Andrea, do you want to discuss briefly the other suggestions for the other points that are in the packet?
Well, those are updates, and we can either discuss them now and decide to include them, or if you do decide to sort of renew the master plan or have a master plan 2021, you could use these as part of the addendum to put the 2018 to bed, and then just put in new points in the new master plan. But I'm not sure what the best way to deal with that is.
What does any thoughts from the committee members on what Andrea has just said?
Yeah, Andrea, I have a question. It seems to me that, looking long-term on the master plan, that we have these societal changes that are taking place. And that is that, people don't get buried in caskets any longer. There's so many more cremations and things like that. So some of the land that we thought we were going to need based on the old style of burying people, it probably isn't needed any longer. And how do we incorporate this into the long-term planning? I mean, I don't think we've been doing it up to this point. And I know that every time I go to a funeral now and there's a casket ad, it's kind of unusual. So, you know, we got a plan, we got this land, but maybe we're not gonna need it. Maybe there's gonna be columbariums and, you know, we're not gonna just need to develop that part back there. I don't know the answer. I just wonder how we monitor the growth and all of the cemetery and the needs for land.
Yeah, you know, William Clendaniel was brought in, he was sort of a cemetery expert in 1989. This is in the minutes that were sent out to everybody in April when Tish assembled some information about the original plan. And he talks a little bit about the ideal cemetery and about how he'd been to California and how in California, which is sort of the bellwether on this issue, many, many more people are being cremated than are being buried in caskets, as you put it, Leo. And so you're right, that's something to be taken into consideration. One of the reasons they scrapped that big plan, the original plan for the new area, was someone came in, according to what Tish reported, and said, you're going to need this room. So don't try to make this these acres, these 21 acres where the new area is, into something that resembles the old Sleepy Hollow, because you're going to need the room, and that's too it's sort of being overly generous with cemetery space if you try to model the new area after the old. Mm-hmm. But now that we have that this is a new tendency, that you won't need quite as many. We're even thinking about building a columbarium, niche spaces, that kind of thing. There's less reason to be so stingy with land in some sense, and there may be more opportunity to develop the remaining acres of those 21 acres north of the current part of the new area, in some sense like the old cemetery. So that's all for, again, that's for discussing in the cemetery plan. That when Andrea and our colleague on the cemetery committee got together, they discussed all these things. They put them in as proposals, then they were discussed in the cemetery committee, and then they were sort of distilled and put into this master plan. And the master plan is a result of a lot of discussion, and so it has to be an ongoing process. But it's interestingly organized so that various headings can remain the same, though what's going to be done under them may vary. So what I just wanted to do today was sort of make the cemetery committee members aware of how some things have been accomplished. For example, this is what Andrea's discovered, or is announcing it. In some way, we've moved ahead with the columbarium issue. We hadn't done this 2-3 years ago. We've completed the mausoleum issue, which hadn't been done 2-3 years ago. And I think there are other things, aren't there, in your updates, Andrea, that we hadn't done but now have done?
Andrea, you're muted.
I know I couldn't hit the unmute for some reason, but I've got it now. So yeah, we in fact record scanning was a priority, and now we're in the almost finished with that. So the Melbourne restoration was a huge thing. Now that's done. So that's why I'm thinking, like, you know, do you want to keep this master plan that we did in 2018 and keep just adding updates where it gets a little confusing and more addendums that are harder to read through? Or do you put an addendum on this, say, this is what we've accomplished, and then you have a kind of a new master plan of 2021 or 2022, whenever you do it, and you know, go forward with some new priorities. And of course, the 2018 is still preserved, just like the one that Whitney and I looked at, I think was from the 80s. You know, and they're very informative, and it is a nice way. It's easier than reading through a lot of meeting minutes when you're trying to figure out what happened. At least it provides a guide if you want to then make your way to the minutes. But it's nice for new members to look at, and then it kind of it kept our committee, I feel like, on task and reviewing these things, and how do we get this project going and keep it going. So it's it was incredibly helpful. I feel like after we got a hold of this, it focused us a bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you think of how many things that are that were proposed and that are now done. It's helpful to have a goal and you can maybe reach it.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrea. But I have a question afterward.
I was just gonna keep pushing too for the columbarium, like Leo brought up, that I think Tish has told us in meetings before that cremations make up to, oh, it says right here, yeah, and 70% of burials in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery are cremation. So not only does that, if we provide columbarium, not only is that a nice needed service that we provide for people who want to be buried there, it's a little more affordable, I think, frequently than a full grave, but it does allow us to bring in more revenue because we're selling people what they want, and we also have more space. Like those, they take up much less land, like Leo was saying, than a full burial. So it's like a win-win for everyone. We're giving the community what they want, and we are able to provide more space to do that, and then charge for that.
Well, yeah, let me just say this. It's a win-win, except the price is less. So your revenues are going down rather than up. And that's what the problem is.
But you could sell more of them, I think. A lot of people don't end up deciding to be buried in Sleepy Hollow because there isn't a cremation space, or they would have to pay more. I mean, you might have more customers in the end if you can provide that.
Sounds good.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Has the idea of a section for green burials ever been discussed?
Jerry, you can speak to that.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of green burial. And my wife is buried at one of the only green cemeteries in New England, up in Maine. So I think the columbarium is a good first step toward something like that. That's a big production. So I'd love to see it. I think it's going to take a lot of work, and I don't know where specifically the site would be. And I don't know if there would be a site within the existing cemetery that would be appropriate, but yeah, it's definitely something of personal interest and of general interest out there. And yeah, something to put on the master plan to explore. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
More
Me,
thoughts? Go ahead.
to me, yeah, thanks, Paul. To me, I think it makes sense to maybe review the master plan every 5 years, starting 2025 and then do it every 5 years, because, a lot of our projects take more than a year or two, and some even, greater than 7 or so, with the mausoleums and whatnot. So to me, I think it makes a lot of sense to accept these amendments tonight, add these addendums to our current plan, but then put on the list for 2025 that we'll kind of do a wholesale review and, look to the future, whether that's green lots, and, also look back to see what we've accomplished, as far as like Melvin Memorial and that type of thing. So that would be my suggestion, is look at it every 5 years and update it from there.
Thank you, Brian. Any other thoughts on what Brian just suggested? Well, I kind of like that too. Or what I could put it this way, I'd like to adopt the updates that Andrea's worked out, and also the added 6.4 that I drafted that Andrea looked at as well. I'd like to adopt those for the time being, and then the committee can do what they will with the master plan as we go forward. I also, after we decide on that, I want to take a quick look at the appendices, the current appendices of the master plan, because there's a couple of things I wanted to point out to the committee there. Let's do it this way. If there's no objections to any of the things to the text in any of the updates, which you've all got in front of you, and which we saw briefly on the screen. If there's no objection to any of that, I would like to go ahead and move that it be adopted and it added into the master plan as it stands. but if someone wants to second that, then we can vote on it or not.
Yeah, I'd be happy to second that.
All right, so it's moved that we accept the, and seconded that we accept the updated text that Andrea Solomons provided us and the text that I provided for memorializing or keeping in memory the original plan for the new area and putting it into the master plan. So that's the motion. Does anybody have any question about it? All right, well, let's have a roll call vote. Brian, obviously is for it.
Aye.
Paul Cook, aye. Leo.
Aye.
Jerry.
Aye.
Andrea.
Hi.
So it's accepted. And if we could ask that be placed, if I don't know how the mechanism, maybe Aaron could ask Justine to insert it into the master plan. Would that work?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the next thing I want to do is just look briefly at the appendices of the master plan and ask Justine if she would put that up again. This is the very back of the master plan. Obviously, that's where appendices go. The first thing is the charge, which I want to encourage the committee in the future to have a look at every year. The first 2 points are in some way the main ones. The committee is responsible for the operation of all town cemeteries and burial grounds and establishing the policies and regulations for such. That is a very elastic clause. It's as big as you want to make it to be. Somebody asked Woodrow Wilson how big the presidency of the United States was. He says, it's as big as the person who's the president wants to make it to be. Though, of course, he's always checked by the Congress and the courts. But in any case, that's a very elastic clause. And the second one is provide policy guidance to the director, in this case, the superintendent, in the care, this is point number 2, in the care and management of all public burial grounds in the town, including the laying out of lots and subdivisions. We did that a few years ago when we created a new place for cremains or ashes in the new area, providing paths and ways, plantings, embellishing, ornamenting, and fencing the grounds and so forth. And then if we just go down to the very bottom of the charge, I think it's number 14, somewhere like that. Have a look at that. Submit an annual, this is one of the responsibilities of the chair, to submit an annual report for the incorporation in the annual town report. When I find out who the new chair is, I'll email you a copy of the last 3 or 4 annual reports so you have some idea what they look like. You can do it yourself any way you want, but okay. And then let's go on down to the next thing. This is a map of the cemetery, and you can see the distance between the new area and the old. We'll go down a little bit further. Thank you, Justine. Let's go on down. Continue to the next thing. This is for the envision statement. In 2017, the whole town asked every committee to submit some kind of a statement about what their committee was doing. And I just want to read you the very first paragraph, the vision for the cemetery committee. Concord's 3 cemeteries constitute a physical testimony of the history of the first English-speaking settlement above tidewater in New England, a place where a significant portion of America's great cultural, religious, political, and literary heritage may be touched upon and remembered. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, furthermore, was designed not only as a place to remember the past, but to be a setting for the refreshment and inspiration of the living. The committee's task is to help protect and preserve all 3 of these sites, which have been provided for the town, an inheritance of national importance by those who came before us. And it talks about some of the major accomplishments and some of the things that need to be done. But this is, of course, 4 years old. So as Andrea was saying, some of these things are dated. Let's go on down a little bit further. This is something that I think Tish created. Tish, can you tell us anything about this?
Dan that created it, and that was just the space that we had per section available.
So there's still quite, this is of course dates from 2018, which is 3 years ago. But it just gives you an idea of how much burial space is left for cremations and for full burials in both the new and the old area. And then we go down to the next part, a map, a picture actually of the new area. And a little bit further down, please. Thank you, Justine. This is a list of, this is when we first finished the master plan, and we sat down and talked about, well, okay, now we've got it all here. What are our priorities? And this was the list of priorities from September 2018. And if you look at this, a large number of these things have been taken care of. And so I certainly agree with Andrea that this could be supplanted. There are a few things that haven't been done, but there are a lot that have been. And it's interesting to see that we've been able to, over the past 4 years or 3 years, been able to accomplish a lot of this. Well, I just would like to see one more appendix put in here, which is that map of the old Sleepy Hollow, the original Sleepy Hollow new area plan, and whatever else, maybe a distillation of the minutes from some of those old meetings that talk a little bit about the plan, or just something, even if it's just the map, as a reminder of what the original plan was, so that in the future, future committees can have some reference to the original idea and perhaps institute some of it. Any thoughts or questions on any of this? Okay, thanks, Justine. Let's go on now to the third thing on this list on the master plan, the tree planting, erosion reduction with Leo. Leo, you're muted.
That might be a good thing. I'm not sure. We've looked at a couple of areas in the cemetery to try to find what type of new ground cover will survive in our current conditions. The topsoil is pretty much depleted in a lot of places in the cemetery. It was never really all that rich in many places. So we looked at on the driving area going up to Arthur's Ridge, near the Verrill family plot, of putting in different types of ground coverings there, and monitoring them to see which survives best. Right now with these conditions we have, with average temperatures going up and drought conditions, a lot of things that used to work just don't seem to be working as well. So that was the plan. And then also on Ephraim Wales Bull's grave site, there's just a tremendous amount of erosion and damage from not having a ground cover. So these were the areas that we're looking at to see if we could succeed in coming up with the best seeds to put in. It was supposed to be done this month, but I talked to Tish and she said that they don't have any summer help and things are tough right now, but it'll probably get done in the next couple of weeks. So we're a little bit behind on it, but I think we're still we're moving in the right direction. That'll give us a lot of basis to make some future decisions. I know that I give everybody credit for it. The burial area where one of the Melvin brothers is buried has a tremendous amount of erosion. We tried on 3 separate occasions to plant new grass, to reloam it, and actually put this burlap up to hold the land in place. And it failed. It failed miserably in spite of everybody's best intention. So we're trying to understand how we can get around this. So that's one thing, is the ground cover. The other thing is when a tree goes down, especially a mature tree that's over 100, 150 years old, when that goes down, its shadow is now no longer there. So there's within
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple of years of that being taken down, you'll see that rocks start popping through the surface. The vegetation on the surface is gone. And now we're into advanced stages of erosion. And so, you know, when I first came on the committee, my thought was, well, why don't we just go where we had some old trees and plant them? And, you know, through my educational process here, and I thank Tish especially for this, that we don't own those lots. Those lots are privately owned. We can't go and put trees on them. So what we have to do is find areas that the town owns, not privately owned, and then we can plant trees to try to get them to get back to where they can cast a shadow over the burnt area. So that's going to happen. This year we have a planning, and Aaron might talk about a little more, but we have some plantings going on, and we're going to put those in spots so that they can cast a shadow eventually on areas that are pretty badly scorched. And then the last thing I'd like to bring up, and this has happened just within the last a month, and that is that you know, the Friends of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery has money to use for planting trees. And this is an interesting story. Tish did a tremendous job, and one person in town was very, very grateful and wanted to give her something for it. But she said, "I'm sorry, I can't accept money for this." And so she said, perhaps you could just give it to the Friends of Sleepy Hollow. So they've got enough, I believe, to do some plantings that are fairly important right now. And that is at the bottom of Arthur's Ridge, there's Glade Avenue, and below that is Sleepy Hollow Avenue, near where people can park the cars. There's two places where you can park there. There's a group of 11 hemlocks there that are badly diseased and are obviously going to have to come down. Some have already come down. So we have an opportunity to perhaps take 3 down at a time and replace them immediately with some good sized trees. And so we won't have a situation where we just, you know, kind of clear cut the area and have it bare. We can actually transition into taking some trees down, but replacing them immediately with some trees to help you know, put back the erosion. And so at the last Friends of Sleepy Hollow committee meeting, they brought that up, and I'm thinking that now we can actually start getting a plan together to plant those. And the key person on this is Tish, because the person who left that money said, I will leave it to the Friends of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, but I want Tish to decide what trees are going to get planted and where. So that's a pretty big thing for us as far as this erosion control and topsoil preservation.
I just want to encourage you, Leo, to push that. If the Friends want to do it, and Tish is a key person, just get together with Aaron and the rest of the committee and see if you can make it happen.
Tish is not the key person. She is the person. It was her idea in the first place.
All right.
But the conundrum in all of this is finding the money to do it. And here we have it. We have the whole package. We have the idea, we have the area, and we have the financing for it. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah. So Leo, since you're the one who's let the committee know about it, just, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease and all that, you know?
Well, I am a pain, but I'm consistent.
I don't think so. I think you're doing a good job. So I would put that on, you know, something to follow up on and make it happen.
I went over to Tish this morning, but she was in the middle of a Zoom call. I like to go and visit her before these meetings, so I appear to be knowledgeable.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for Leo on this? Or for Tish or Aaron?
Just one follow-up question for the future. Are Tish and Aaron, are there places on cemetery grounds that could essentially be used as test plots that you actually could, put some plants in, not in the locations by the graves or anything like that, but actually look at various varieties of ground cover, so they're not necessarily exposed to the public all the time, but one could make an assessment, after a year's time as to whether a particular variety of ground cover might be worth testing at a real site within the cemetery. Is there something like behind the cemetery grounds building or anything like that? Or
There's areas within the cemetery. I mean, everything, it's all cemetery property is public property and accessible to anybody from dawn to dusk, basically. But there's areas that we plan on doing some ground covering, like Leo mentioned, this summer. But there's not really an open nursery type of area where we're doing experimental.
Okay. It's because it is a substantial, I agree with Leo, it is a substantial challenge. The loam that I bring over to the burial site where my wife is buried is frequently converted, from town compost basically to sand within 18 months.
Yeah.
Enormous decomposition going on. I mean, the microbial activity in the soil is and microorganism activity is really, really substantial. And the critters are hungry when organic material is introduced into the soil. So it does put considerable challenges in picking out some kind of a plant variety that can withstand that challenge and also tolerate stress tolerance and nutrient tolerance. So I was thinking you may need some kind of a legume that at least can provide its own nitrogen. Where we're going to get the phosphate and the potassium is another issue. But knowing what your policies are with respect to using fertilizers and things like that, so it'll be very interesting to see, and also to see that we may need to introduce what currently would be viewed as non-native, ground cover here because of the change of the temperature range for change. So that's all a consideration, and that may be something you may want to look at, for 5, 10, 15 years in the future. Start evaluating now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make another comment on that. And Rob, I'm a member of the Garden in the Woods over in Framingham. It's a place where they specialize in non-invasive species, native species, and they have a great staff and faculty over there. I think we should try to get them interested in helping us with a plan to try to restore this top layer of ground in a number of places throughout the cemetery using native species. And I don't know how that works, but I'm going to suggest that I give them a call because I am a member, and ask if they would have some thoughts on this. And maybe native species is not the answer. I don't know at this point, but I do know that having talked to a person who's doing some landscaping over there, they said that if you're not going to irrigate it and you're not going to fertilize it, and then you're not going to get the type of green grass that people often associate with a cemetery. Now, I myself don't particularly care about that, but I just think we need some type of a ground cover that doesn't look, frankly, hideous at times. And that one, the one in front of the Melvin burial plot, it looks awful. It's awful. It's sad. We have the beautiful monument for the soldiers, but try as we have, we couldn't get something to grow there. And so this is part of the conundrum.
Leo's not talking about in front of the Melvin Memorial, everybody. He's talking about where the Melvins are buried. It's a different spot in the cemetery.
Yeah. and the conundrum here is that we all have great intentions, but none of us are experts at some of these things that we're trying to deal with. And so I'm going to approach the Friends too, because if there's some costs associated with this, maybe they might be interested in helping, but we really need to have someone who knows what they're doing on these ground covers and understands the effects of climate change and you know, heated surface temperatures of what we should be planting for the future.
Leo, you know, Rod is a scientist. He knows a lot about biochemistry. So you may have a man right on the cemetery committee who knows something about this stuff.
Oh, good.
So
I've killed more plants than I've maintained, but Leo, I think it's a fantastic idea to call in help from that organization, and any help we can get in terms of some expert advice I think would be extremely useful, extremely.
Yeah.
It may allow us to network with some other folks who are having similar problems, you know, and find out somebody has a solution for this. We just need to find them.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like I've failed because I have been trying and I'm not finding it.
well, you know, Leo, by just doggedly sticking to the subject, you're slowly finding you and Rod have now talked, and you've made these connections with the folks over at the Friends, and now this new one is Garden in the Woods. So, you know, these things take time, but it helps that you're pushing it. So hats off to you, and just keep on doing that.
Well, you know, I'll tell you where I did find a little bit of, I'm an optimist, but I did find a little bit of discouragement as online, you can read the old cemetery committee reports starting in 1855, and a consistent theme was about erosion and how poor the quality of the topsoil was. I'm hoping I didn't bite off more than I could chew, but this is a bigger job than you'd think.
I mean, Mr. Emerson couldn't solve the problem, but maybe you can do what Ralph Waldo couldn't do.
And you know, it's nothing. Ralph Waldo was the chairman at one time, and you'll notice that some of those reports are very, very eloquent. They're just beautifully written.
Oh. All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, is there anything else on this subject? All right, let's go on to the next one, which is the columbaria with Andrea and Jerry.
So where we left it after the last meeting is we're going to need some data from town engineering so that we have something to give to prospective vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need those. There's both setbacks from the wetlands to consider, and then you know, because there's such a grade there, there's so many different elevations to consider. That would be an important thing to have before drawings are made. And I'll just take another opportunity to say how needed this is to have a columbarium.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Aaron, you were, I think Aaron is working with the town engineers to get something cooking on that respect.
Yes, they haven't started working on the columbaria item yet, but we have a couple of other initiatives that they're assisting us with right now.
So it's on Aaron's radar, and it's going to be on the engineering department's radar. And Jerry, you know, you're going to have to do what Leo's doing. Just keep on it until you get what you need.
Yep, agreed. Looking
All
forward.
right. Anything else on columbaria? I want to thank Andrea and Jerry for sort of pioneering this and really pushing it forward. It was just an idea, and now it's more than an idea. Okay, undeveloped land use, Brian.
Thanks, Paul. Just, you know, for our new members, just to kind of recap what this is we've had a lot of activity, whether, especially from bicycles in the cemetery, where people have kind of rode over graves, as well as kind of disrupted different burial ceremonies by, you know, either loud talk, calling to each other. some even more inflammatory than that, making jokes as they were riding by. And of course, we have a lot of dog walkers in the cemetery. And part of this area is down in Chestnut Hollow, where there's a little bridge over a brook, and then it connects on to the Reformatory Trail. And as you may or may not be aware, there's a lot of discussion with the town of Bedford about expanding the Reformatory Trail as a paved trail up to the border of Concord. And then there are interest groups in town that would like to then pave the Reformatory and make this a larger bicycle area. So the cemetery group was just kind of concerned, obviously, by the ongoing activity and then potential increased activity that if the Reformatory Branch Trail activity was increased. So we, as a group, have been taking different steps to try and address the visitors, to make sure that people are reminded that they need to be respectful, and of course, not walk their dogs over cemetery, over the graves, and potentially allow them to, do their business in the graves, as well as make sure that, bicyclists aren't riding over the graves or off trail, which has caused some erosion in the area. So that's kind of just the 30 view. One of the ideas we had was to place some signage in a trail that connects between that Chestnut Hollow Bridge and the Reformatory Trail, as well as in the new section where some of the trailheads are for the different woods area there. So I don't know, we received a proof late last week, so we haven't had a ton of time to kind of look at the language, but I don't know, Aaron, if you could, I know you had kind of you had sent me an initial proof for signage, and I know, Paul, we included some language, kind of look at what that proof might look like, maybe different language there. So I don't know, maybe Aaron, if you could share your screen, maybe just to kind of give folks a view. So it was difficult to kind of come up with the language because, not exactly knowing the size of the sign and whatnot, how much language could we have on there. But I think if we can take a look at and see, what we have from this company, it will kind of give us a view of the amount of language that we're looking for. And that might help as we kind of discuss what we want the signs to say.
I'll try to share the proof here. Give me 1 second. Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah, great.
This is a proof of that we kind of received and we'd mocked up. I went back to our vendor and asked them to adjust some of the spacing and some of the font as well. But this is the general message that we wanted to try to get across and by posting some of those areas that Brian referenced. So keep it simple that people can see as they are, quickly as they're entering the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. People are walking, they don't always stop, or they might be riding a bicycle right out to the rail trail, and there's maybe a Reformatory Branch Trail that's right there. And didn't want to kind of include too much language that they would just kind of drive quickly by and not pay attention to. So, but again, I asked them to adjust the font, adjust the spacing, make it a little bit sharper so that it's easier and clearer to read.
Thanks, Aaron. And so when I was kind of, thinking about this item, so if you look at our cemetery rules and regulations, which are dated July 2019, there's, of course, a number of rules and regulations. And one of it is Article 2, General Regulations, has a section 2 called Etiquette. And in it, it states that visitors are expected to stay on roads and paths and refrain from trespassing upon grave lots wherever possible. Quiet, respectable behavior is expected. So the requirement to stay on the roads and paths, when I looked at, what we have for current signage, I didn't necessarily see it there. We do have signs and there are quite a few rules that we have posted, but I didn't see anyone specifically to that people have to stay on the roads and paths. So I kind of created some language just using that rule as kind of, and I think that was included in our materials that people can kind of take a look at. I did think that it was best to use the word visitor rather than try and narrow a particular subset of that group, specifically to identify bicyclists or dog walkers, to just keep it a more general visitor. But of course, the committee can kind of discuss that. But some of my earlier comments were rejected by Paul from the outset. I had save a grave, stay where it's paved. He rejected that one right away. And then I also had don't tread on the dead, keep to the road instead. And again, Paul rejected those ones as well. So those two are out, but I did. And again, I apologize because I did quickly just try and kind of put some things together. But so we do have, what's kind of the Aaron's proof, what we have currently. And then I just provided some alternative language, but it's really all just kind of parceling back to that specific rule that I identified a few minutes ago. So, we can keep it as is. We can take pieces of the different alternative language if anybody is interested in it. I mean, I won't read through it. I think you guys have it in your materials, but so I guess I just open it up then to discussion of how people feel about the language. Do we want to stay with status quo? Is there anything else that we would like to try and put into it if we could?
Yeah, Brian, I'd like to comment on that. I see people in the cemetery lot doing things, and I talk to them about it, and 100% of the time they say, "Oh, I didn't see the sign," or so I don't know. Well, I do know this: the sign we have now isn't doing it. So I think Aaron's sign, maybe a simpler sign with bigger letters, will be the solution. But I would tend to put less verbiage than more, and I still don't know whether that solves the solution. But I look back when I used to have a boat, and there were a lot of harbor masters that had trouble in the harbors. And, I think a poor Tish, and all she has to do is, so one of the solutions they came up with is they armed the harbor master. So I'm kind of thinking if we give, Tish a pistol, maybe that might help kind of solve something.
At least a shotgun with some bird shot in it, nothing serious.
It's fine. Anything's fine. Yeah.
Just to
Just
wing 'em.
wound them. Don't kill them. Just wound them. No, I just, the point I'm trying to make is if there's too much verbiage, they're not going to see it because they don't even see what we've got right now. So I don't know how you enforce etiquette. It's, it's a societal decay that's taking place right now.
Ryan, a couple questions. Are the bicyclists primarily coming through the cemetery to connect to the reformatory trail? Or are they just, cruising the cemetery?
Yeah, Tish, of course, could speak to it more because she's there every day. But my understanding is it's a little bit of both, Rebecca, that there are people that connect to the reformatory trail. And then there are people just coming down 62 that, just to take a break from the road, just veer in. And, there may be 3 or 4 people and they just kind of call and, I think most of them aren't trying to be disruptive, but I think they're just kind of calling to each other and just in general being loud. And of course, we have had, instances where people, have taken it to another level for sure.
Yeah. And as a matter of curiosity, is there any reason why that path needs to connect to the cemetery, to the reformatory trail? I mean, is there another way to direct traffic, bicycle traffic to get to the reformatory trail? I know that might have been discussed and settled. I just am curious. Do I make sense? In other words, do they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there some way to alter that connection to the reformatory trail so people are not just whizzing through Chestnut Hollow to get to it?
I think that could be a step that we as a group take, so we We have, so last year there was a citizen that wanted to make that more bike friendly to increase bike traffic. I think that the committee rejected that idea because
Yeah.
we view it as the nature as kind of an extension of the cemetery where people should be able to, be able to reflect a little bit on the cemetery, a garden cemetery means and nature. And so we rejected the idea that, we should change it to a bike path and keep it a mixed use path where both bikes and walkers could use it. We've talked with the Trails Committee a little bit. They have actually altered some of their trails on our property, as well as they now have also included language that specifically states that, Sleepy Hollow is an active burial ground. Please, if you're going to go there, please be respectful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think as far as, taking that path out, I think that could be something that the committee discusses. I think I look at it as, going back to maybe Leo's point, putting up the signs and people don't respect it. And I think that's a fair point, but I think that by making steps, by taking, a series of steps, and not, if those small steps don't correct the issue, then we can go to the community at large, which has a very, very active lobbyist group for bicyclists and others, to then say, well, we've tried all these other steps, we haven't been able to solve the problem. Maybe that is, the next step type of thing, is just to take the trail out. But I think that what we're trying to do maybe is take smaller steps to show that we've tried to take reasonable efforts to maintain the dignity of the cemetery, while at the same time, allowing citizens to bicycle. But I'll open the floor. I don't mean to monopolize the conversation.
I guess before us, we have the question of, we have a sign, Aaron showed it to us, it looks a handsome sign, we have some text on it. The question is, where are we going to put those signs? I also was wondering, there's also the exit just from the Reformatory Trail proper, that area that's still unused, but it's between the cemetery proper and the Reformatory Branch Trail, which is full of non-paved trails. We had someone from Brian Windmiller last month, from the sort of naturalist point of view, preserving, in this case, the turtles, but also preserving the sort of wild nature aspect of the cemetery, wanting to keep bicyclists off those trails that are just north of the cemetery proper. And the question is, do we want to have any signage addressing that? And if we did, would it be something distinct from the signage that we've just seen on the screen a minute ago, that Aaron showed us, with the green background? In other words, are we looking at two different kinds of signs? And then I guess the question then is everyone content with the text that Brian and Aaron have presented? If not, or if so, we can vote on that, or if not, suggestions can be made.
Sorry, Paul, just to jump in. Personally, I think I'd like to change the dog's leash sign to something about staying on paved roads, because we do have signage that says dogs need to be unleashed. And because this particular path has a lot of bicycle activity, that I think, and because especially in that Chestnut Hollow area, we've had a lot of trouble with people riding across graves, I think that this would be a good place to, I'd say 95% of the sign's great, but maybe instead of the no dogs leashed, have some kind of thing that says, please stay on the pavement, or, please stay to the road, or some language to that effect.
So you would use, instead of using visitors, you'd actually use bicyclists?
Well, I wouldn't use the bicyclists, but I think I would put just either visitors, please stay on marked, on paved roads, or, or to some effect. I don't think I would identify bicyclists, but I think I would just state that people should stay on the pavement. That's really kind of, we don't want them, going across, whether they're walking their dogs or whether they're riding their bike. We don't want people going across the graves. We want people to stay to the paved, to follow the rule we have, which is the paved roads. So to me, I think, that's the one line that maybe I would alternate to, instead of saying bicyclists keep to the paved road, I would just say visitors keep to the paved road or something to that line.
Where would you put the sign, just as they come across that little bridge into the Chestnut Hollow area?
Yes, because I think a number of paths come to that. That's the one kind of choke point where a number of the paths come to. So to me, it makes the most sense to put it right there.
So were we just, I think, Aaron, at one point, are we just thinking about one sign then, just there?
Yeah.
Is that what's up for discussion at this point? The one sign, that green sign, and the text that will be on it at that spot? I guess so. That's what, Aaron, is that what we were thinking about? Right?
Well, that's what I had approved for, but something similar to that, I asked them to adjust the sign slightly.
Where would you put the other three?
So you had one at the entrance from the couple trailheads coming off of the Reformatory Branch Trail. Another one at the bridge just before they enter into the Chestnut Hollow, and then I was going to have an extra one on the shelf in case we needed to replace the sign.
Okay. Does everybody think that's a good way to do it?
Yeah, I think it is, but I'd like to throw out a suggestion, and that is when you get across that little bridge coming from the swamps into the cemetery, there's a big rock there. And perhaps we can place some type of a little barrier that will force people to get off their bicycles to actually read the sign, and have that, have say a little barrier so you can come up and you can walk through it and around it, but it forces you to stop and see it.
Mm.
Thoughts on Leo's suggestion?
Well, I certainly like the idea of making people stop and get off their bikes. One of the things I was thinking of in looking at the signs was think about the phrase, please dismount and walk bicycles on cemetery property.
Thoughts about what Jerry just said? That's a hot potato for some people. I think I mentioned it before. When you walk into Harvard Yard and you're in Cambridge, there's a sign that says, "Bicyclists, please dismount and walk your bikes." I don't know if anybody's around to enforce it, but that's what the sign says.
Yeah, there's a speed limit sign on Route 28 at 55 miles an hour too. So we all love the law, but we'd like to have an exception.
All right. But before, we could just go ahead and say, Aaron, go ahead, print. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Or we could say, okay, we'll do it in a year from now, do it differently. Or we could say, let's wait and make sure we got it perfectly. What does the committee sense? Do you want to just go ahead with what we have, or just change it slightly the way Brian wants to make just a small change? What is the slight change you want to make, Brian? What do you want the text to say?
I think the last line kind of says all dogs remain leashed, but I think we should do something like, and I leave it to Aaron, just how, because he has to play around with the wording and whatnot, but to something to the effect that visitors, should stay to the paved roads or stay on the pavement, something to that effect.
Can we put this, Aaron, would you put the sign back up for us one more time?
So if you'll see that last line, it says all dogs must be leashed. There are signs that say that in other spots. There are not any signs that say you must stay on the pavement. This particular area has a lot of bicycle activity, which is one of the issues we're concerned about, riding across the graves. So I would just take out that last particular sentence, and I don't know the exact language because Aaron probably has to play with it a little bit. So just to give him freedom to make it, but I would say, stay on pavement, or, all visitors remain on pavement,
So you'd say, please use these grounds quietly and respectfully. All visitors, please stay on pavement.
Yeah, pavement.
You include pets on that?
Good point. People
Yeah.
walking their
All
dogs.
visitors and pets,
Yeah.
just a thought.
Well, since they should be leashed, I would, hopefully,
I think I understand what the committee's going after, so if I can get some time to, let me work with the sign and the language, and I'll replace that last line with something that along the lines of, please keep the paved surfaces, or please keep the roadways, something like that, that fits.
Bikes and cars, honestly, I don't think people would be too confused, but a lot of the visitors that come to visit are there to visit a grave. So they're obviously walking off the pavement.
Good, Tish, good point. So I do think that our concern here is even not so much as Brian said, not so much about dogs, but people riding their bikes all over the place. So
Dogs and bikes and
So-
cars.
that too. So the idea, I think the thing that's most prompting us is problems with bikes. Is that correct? Or I mean, we can't do everything with the sign, but trying in some way to encourage bicyclists to be a little less aggressive in the cemetery, stay on safe paved surfaces. I mean, you could say, Brian doesn't want to use the word, doesn't want to address them specifically, which is fine.
well, because I think there's 3 other groups that are, we just came with 2 other groups, that,
Yeah.
need to stay on the pavement as well. It's not just singling out one group.
Yeah.
Well, my attitude is if you don't know what to do, don't do something.
Ah,
So I really don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Maybe we should let Aaron fool around with the text a little bit and present it to the committee next time it meets, and live with the status quo until then.
well, here, let me make a comment. I think, Brian, first of all, you've done a great job of encapsulating the problems that we're having back there. I think you've done a great service to the committee, and thank you very much. It's a good thing. But I just think that if we keep redoing this sign, the season's going to be over. We're not even going to meet again until August. So whatever good we were trying to accomplish this season, we'd have to say it's going to be lost. I kind of think the sign, if we make it too complicated, it's a lot of cooks here. Soup's not going to come out that good.
So Leo, what would you just go with what we've got?
Yeah, I mean, we go into too many redesigns. Well, Aaron, I can see him. He's not smiling because he's a gentleman, but he's probably thinking to himself, God, these guys, how many times are we going to do this?
I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion to go ahead, please do.
Tish, make a motion, please.
Leo, listen, Leo, this is where you have to step out. Do if you think this is what you want to do.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we take this sign and put it up the way it is and do it in a way that bicyclists have to get off and look at it. Have to dismount to look at it.
Okay.
I didn't get a second, so it wasn't that good an idea.
Well, I mean, we can always undo what you do.
Yeah.
And so you want to move them. How would you make it so they have to get off their bikes?
Well, I would just get like the posts that Tish uses on that roundabout at the end of Chestnut Hollow. Get a couple of posts like that, and maybe some 2x4s, and have them, treated, and just have 2 sets of them. So you have to stop to go through them. I mean, walkers can go through, and people with baby carriages and all that stuff, but the bikes would have to, either zip through it and get off at a funny angle to do it, but it'll slow them down enough to see the sign right in front of them. I mean,
Aaron,
Okay,
I also don't want to create an unsafe situation where we have a bicyclist crash because we put something in the middle of an area that they're used to just riding through. I would suggest if we can try to, I'd like to just make some signs. We'll put them out. If you want to take off the dog's leash, we can take off the dog's leash. Since that's on other signs, and just say, this is an active burial ground, and please use these grounds quietly and respectfully, because, after hearing all the comments and all the suggestions and the complaints and issues that we've heard from the general public too, I think the issue is with the general respect of the grounds and for what this cemetery is. And if we just put that general statement up there as that reminder to anybody that comes through, whether they're a walker, a biker, a jogger, or a motor vehicle operator, and we put these in a couple of key locations and see if that changes the overall attitude, I guess, of folks as they come through.
yeah. No, I understand your concerns about the safety, but there is a pretty good sized boulder right in the middle of that path. Perhaps we could put 2 more so that it's just big enough for people to get through.
I can take a look at it, Leo.
Okay, we're in the impasse here. That's fine.
I have a suggestion. I would like to appoint Leo and Brian to come up with text for the sign and consult with Aaron. And then in the future, if you want to talk about what they call passive restraints, like they put bumps in the road for cars to slow them down, that kind of stuff. I remember in front of Concord Academy a couple of years ago, they had the sidewalk come out halfway into the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And they removed that after a while. I think it was a hazard. But in any case, that's a subject that maybe you can talk about later. But since we're on the verge of putting a sign up, but we don't quite know what the text is, and we don't want to, I think we're out of time and energy to fiddle with it. If just Leo and Brian would work with Aaron and come up with some text and go ahead and put up the signs.
Well, I think that gets close to a subcommittee, Paul. If Leo and I are both involved in it, then it starts getting close to a subcommittee.
Does it?
Because if 2 people, just like Andrea and Jerry are a subcommittee on the columbarium, but I'd be happy to work.
Fine. How about you do it?
I'd be happy to work with Aaron.
But just consult with Leo. Just talk.
No, don't have to consult me. I'm of the Thoreau school. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Less is better. I've made my statement.
All right.
Now, Brian is a lawyer. Now he gets paid by the word. So this is a different situation.
When we're ready to put the boards with the nails down across the bridge, then
That's the next step.
All right. Okay. All right. So Brian, if there's any fine tuning with the text that you want to do with Aaron, please go. How about if the committee deputize you to do that? If that's okay with everybody, is that agreeable to all members? If Andrea's shaking her head, Jerry, is that okay? Jerry says it's okay. It's okay with me. Okay with Leo. Okay. So
All right.
Brian, if you would do that, just work with Aaron, and as soon as you guys can, I agree with what you say, Leo. Time is an issue. Put the sign. That's a pretty sign. Put it up and see if it doesn't do some good. It'll make life easier for Tish.
Great.
Maybe.
Okay, the question is, how do we measure success? See if it does some good. How do you measure that?
That's subjectively done by Tish.
Okay, so the way we measure success around here is by how happy Tish is. Okay, I get it.
That's it. You've discovered it, Leo. Okay. Let's go on. There's still a couple of things to do before I let you guys go. Repair and restoration of cemetery stone walls. That's Leo. That's you again.
Yeah, and that and we've talked about it for several months now. When the new fiscal year starts, which I think is July, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, Aaron, the money will be there to start that project, and we're gonna, I believe, start it right at the beginning of July. That's where I was under the impression we were on this. Is that correct?
So I think we earmarked $10,000 in next fiscal year to make repairs to stone walls. We need to work on what the priorities of those are going to be. So that's
I
just,
mean, which wall are you gonna work on?
that's exactly the question. So we need to figure out what the priorities are gonna be and work through those. So again, that was another item that I need engineering to kind of work with us and identify. Yeah, we've completed an inventory of the walls. We have that of all the stone walls and cemetery property, but we need to basically assess those and determine which ones are we gonna need to, either mortar them or rebuild sections of them. And I think the money that we have, 10,000, is only enough to, make repairs as needed. So I'll work with Tish and someone from engineering to kind of prioritize those, and we'll work through the money, come up with a plan.
Is that report available for us to take a look at, the assessment of the stone wall condition?
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna be anything too elaborate, to be honest with you. Just we'll work through the list of the inventory and identify the areas that are, most deteriorated and then needs work. So $10,000 is not much to do masonry type of work. So
No, and I understand that, but what I'm concerned about is you see rocks that come out of those walls, they fall down, and then they're gone. They disappear. Sometimes I get them and I put them up above where they fell out, but at some point, if we don't at least keep things pasted together, we're going to lose a lot of the stones that were in the original walls. And
yeah, I agree. I think there's two things we need to do is, we'll make some repairs in the short term for this fiscal year, and then look at a larger, what is the larger repairs look like, and how much are those going to cost? Because we've talked about downtown walls, the larger stretches, those are hundreds of thousands of dollar projects that need to be planned out, and we come up with funding sources. So I think there's two things we need to do. One, it's a short term to make some repairs with money that the committee said that they would earmark it 10,000 for next year to do, when we'll do that. And then a larger assessment with engineering support to determine kind of long-term capital improvements to the walls.
Okay, so I understand, but the $10,000 is available in July to start doing, I'm going to call it the Band-Aid work on the walls around near the Melvin Memorial. That's where I thought we were going with this.
That's
Correct.
I thought that too.
Correct.
And that would start in July.
Correct.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, God bless you.
This is like Stonewall triage, right? They're the triage that need that. There's the serious long-term treatment of stone walls that have serious long-term problems, but there's also the immediate stop the bleeding, right?
Yeah.
Someone's come into the ER and they're bleeding. Someone needs to do something ASAP. So the 10 the 10 grand is the emergency room department job, right?
It's like the school nurse job. Put a Band-Aid on it.
Okay, so all right. Any other comments or thoughts on this last point? Well, there's so many things to do in the cemetery. And not only that, Aaron not only has the cemetery to look out for, he has the whole job of the roads in the town. And and there's plenty to go do there. So, but it's up to the cemetery to steal him away from some of those other projects and show him what we think the cemetery comes first. He may not always agree. All right.
I have the sense that Aaron interacts with a number of committees that all think that their priorities are the top.
And this is one case when I'm all for self-sacrifice, except in this we're not going to be self-effacing here. We want to demand things for the cemetery. We may not get what we demand, but we don't want to be quiet. Aaron knows that.
Yeah.
So committee comments.
Yeah, on this subject or on all subjects?
All subjects.
Well, I want to thank you and Andrea for your service up to this point. We're gonna miss you. Did a great job, and hopefully you'll come back and see us sometime.
Well, one thing for sure is we'll see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too how much I've loved serving on this committee. It's always interesting. I've enjoyed all the people I've met on the committee and who've come to the meetings. And if you guys ever need a member of the public to show up and support you, I would love to do that.
Hmm,
Yeah, I'll second that one.
yeah.
And I understand that Andrea is being sought after by this Friends of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. They got the full press court. They want her on the team.
I just might join because I am really going to miss being a part of all this. So
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's a
know,
good group.
Kevin Plotzik wrote a note to Andrea and me. He was worried that, you know, maybe the committee would forget about them after we left. And I sent him a note.
No.
Not with Leo on liaison. There's not any chance that's going to happen. And I think all of you appreciate what the Friends do. So I hope that Andrea serves on them. That'd be great.
Hmm.
Other comments? Thank you, Leo.
You guys know when we get to meet live again? Is there any word on that as this pandemic starts to slow down?
Aaron may speak to that.
So we have the governor's authorized Zoom meetings through to September for communities that need it. They're kind of going month to month right now in the town as far as when we're going to make that change. But as soon as I know, I'll let everybody on the committee know.
Okay.
Yes, terrific, terrific. Well,
Yeah.
just like to add my thanks to Paul and Andrea as well. So really appreciate it. A fun year for sure.
It's been great. It's been great. Though this has been hard meeting remotely, but it's worked. And thanks to Justine and Aaron for making this whole thing work by, you know, remotely. I wanted to let Rod and Rebecca know that if I didn't, I think I said at the beginning, Jeremy Ramaso will be getting in touch with you so that you can, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's to get you fully on board.
Okay.
Well, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. I know it's been great working with all of you, and God bless you. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I feel like Andrea needs to make that motion.
okay, I will motion to adjourn.
And I will second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I guess it's unanimous.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Take care. And
God bless you.
hope it goes great for you when you meet in August.
Thank you.
Hmm.